Greetings, everyone. Good evening, hello, and welcome to Chilliteracy. Happy Wednesday. I don't know why I went full Matt Berry there, but I did. Hi, everybody. How are we all doing? I hope we are well. I am very intrigued by Peppermint Oolong. Of course, it's from Bird and Blend. Excellent. Sorry, tea talk has immediately sucked me in. Hello, everybody. How are we doing? Gonna say at the top of this stream, this is going to be a shorter one without a break because I have to get up at 4:15 tomorrow morning. Yay. So, yeah, it's going to be a shorter one tonight. Oh dear, indeed. The joys of being home for a week and then going out to Europe again. That time should be illegal. I agree. But also, I can't trust trains, so I've got to, have a couple of trains in hand to get to the airport. Anyway, yes, hello. I hope we're all doing well. With new teas and other such wonders. Who have we got? We've got hello, Arian. I hope trying to sleep is successful at some point. It's nice that you can catch the start of the stream, but yes, sleeping is probably a good idea. Also, Smallcog, welcome. Diana, hello. Andy Pants, greetings. Trains are very untrustworthy, yeah. Especially in the UK. That's not true. I was in Germany last week and Deutsche Bahn were an absolute nightmare. So everywhere trains are bad. You've been so tired the last few days. Well, in that case, I really do hope you get good sleep. Hello, Lady Mephistopheles. I hope you are well. Sorry, I'm in a very weird mood today, obviously. I think it's the fumes. It is... Have I been Deutsche Bahn? I am always Deutsche Bahn. I seem to always be in Deutschland at the time that the Bahn is being Deutsche Bahn. Yeah, it was a nightmare trying to get to Salzburg. Was not fun. But yes, I have the delightful smell, Diana will approve, of muck spreading wafting into my room very strongly. And it's been like that all day. And I was like, well, I should open my windows to get some breeze through, and then open the windows and the breeze came through and I was like, oh, great. Fabulous. Shite spreading hell, yeah. Yeah, I thought that would elicit some kind of reaction. Yeah, I'm trying to work out which field it's from. I haven't worked that out yet. I went for a run this morning and got just bombarded with the lovely smell of shit. It was very pleasant. Also, hello, Parola. Hope you are well. We are talking about muck spreading. It's great fun. But yes, welcome to living rurally. Oh yes, natural fertilizer. Ooh are. Yes. Apologies for not having been streaming for the last couple of weeks. As I say, I was in a different country, and then I went to a Lady Masery gig, which was lots of fun, and I appear to have indoctrinated pretty much my entire choir into oh my god, we love these people. It's like, yeah, it was quite funny. Their merch stall at the end, this is what happens. Like, I say, oh, you should go and listen to a thing, and then everybody goes, oh, we love this thing, there's a gig near us, let's go. And then we all went, and like over half of my choir, it's not a big choir, there are 12 of us, yeah, we all went, and every single one of them bought a Lady Masery songbook. I am so proud of them. But also, like, oh god, I was just talking to them at their merch tables, like, yes, I think pretty much everybody you've sold a songbook to is a member of my choir, so you're welcome. Do I get commission? I did not. So yeah, that was quite funny. Where am I off to tomorrow? I am off to Darmstadt, which is the home, well, at this time of year, the home of all things weird and wacky and contemporary music. But I'm only there for the weekend. And then I'm back in the UK for a bit longer this time, which is nice. I'm a tastemaker, yeah. I mean, I feel like it's not particularly difficult to make people like Lady Masery. It's just like, go listen to some of their songs, and they come back and go, oh my god, they're amazing. It's like, yes, correct. So, yes. Lady Masery covers for choir when? We've already done a few of their of their songs, because they're for 3 upper voices, and if you have an all higher voices choir, then you can just do that. It's great. So yeah. But yes, since this is going to be a shorter stream tonight, I might get sort of stuck in fairly soon. And for those of you who haven't been keeping up with Barchester Towers, that's totally fine. I hardly have, frankly. There's a lot going on. It's ecclesiastical soap opera, basically. For those of you who have, last time on Barchester Towers, there was drama. Yeah, there we go. Perfect, Lady Mephistopheles. Excellent timing. There was drama. Much drama, many drama, lots of drama. Mr. Slope, our villain of the piece, has decided to confess his love, he doesn't actually love her, to our heroine Eleanor Bold, who's basically gone, no, absolutely not, and then slapped him, which we were all like, yes, we love you, Eleanor Bold. So yeah, she had a great time setting the boundaries, and now she's a bit distraught because, oh my god, she just punched a guy, whoopsie. So yeah, that was kind of where we left off. She's also realised that she does actually love Mr. Arabin, and he realises he loves her, but she's been too annoyed at the fact that everybody just assumed that she was like gonna entertain the odious Mr. Slope, that she's like, yeah, screw all of you guys. Basically, she's great and we love her. What would everyone think? Precisely. So, oh yeah, and the Dean's died. The Dean of Barchester has died. Rip. And everybody's like, ooh, who's going to be the next Dean of Barchester? Is it going to be Mr. Slope? Mr. Slope thinks it's going to be Mr. Slope. Which would be bad, because then he would have more power, and we don't want that. So, that is my slightly unhinged... I'm kind of tired today, can you tell? My slightly unhinged summary of where we're at with Barchester Towers. That sums it up. Thanks. I'm glad I could do that. Oh god, I'm not even gonna get 8 hours sleep tonight. Just looking at the time, I don't want to, is there any point sleeping? Anyway, we love Unhinged and we love tangents around here. Yep. Well, the Tangent Master isn't streaming today, so got me instead. I'm unhinged. That sounds like a great... Having said tangents, just going to go on one. That sounds like a great comedy duo. Hi, we're Unhinged and Tangent. Should be... yeah. Should copyright that. Anyway, if we are all sitting comfortably, if we are suitably hinged or unhinged, doesn't really matter. I'm just going to yawn at you for a second. Excuse me. New podcast idea. Oh no. We don't need a new idea. We have too many as it is. We shall continue with Barchester Towers by Anthony Trollope. Chapter 41. Mrs. Bold confides her sorrow to her friend Miss Stanhope. When Mrs. Bold came to the end of the walk and faced the lawn, she began to bethink herself what she should do. Was she to wait there till Mr. Slope caught her, or was she to go in among the crowd with tears in her eyes and passion in her face? She might, in truth, have stood there long enough without any reasonable fear of further immediate persecution from Mr. Slope, but we are all inclined to magnify the bugbears which frighten us. In her present state of dread, she did not know of what atrocity he might venture to be guilty. Had anyone told her a week ago that he would have put an arm round her waist at this party of Miss Thorne's, she would have been utterly incredulous. Had she been informed that he would be seen on the following Sunday walking down the High Street in a scarlet coat and top boots, she would not have thought such a phenomenon more improbable. But this improbable iniquity he had committed, and now there was nothing she could not believe of him. In the first place, it was quite manifest that he was tipsy. In the next place, it was to be taken as proved that all his religion was sheer hypocrisy. And finally, the man was utterly shameless. She therefore stood watching for the sound of his footfall, not without some fear that he might creep out at her suddenly from among the bushes. As she thus stood, she saw Charlotte Stanhope at a little distance from her, walking quickly across the grass. Eleanor's handkerchief was in her hand, and putting it to her face so as to conceal her tears, she ran across the lawn and joined her friend. "Oh, Charlotte," she said, almost too much out of breath to speak very plainly, "I am so glad I have found you." "Glad you have found me?" said Charlotte, laughing. "That's a good joke. Why, Bertie and I have been looking for you everywhere. He swears that you have gone off with Mr. Slope, and is now on the point of hanging himself." "Oh, Charlotte, don't," said Mrs. Bold. "Why, my child, what on earth is the matter with you?" said Miss Stanhope, perceiving that Eleanor's hand trembled on her own arm, and finding also that her companion was still half choked by tears. "Goodness heaven! Something has distressed you. What is it? What can I do for you?" Eleanor answered her only by a sort of spasmodic gurgle in her throat. She was a good deal upset, as people say, and could not at the moment collect herself. "Come here this way, Mrs. Bold. Come this way, and we shall not be seen. What has happened to vex you so? What can I do for you? Can Bertie do anything?" "Oh, no, said Eleanor. "There is nothing to be done. Only that horrid man." "What horrid man?" asked Charlotte. There are some moments in life in which both men and women feel themselves imperatively called on to make a confidence, in which not to do so requires a disagreeable resolution and also a disagreeable suspicion. There are people of both sexes who never make confidences, who are never tempted by momentary circumstances to disclose their secrets, but such are generally dull, close, unimpassioned spirits, gloomy gnomes who live in cold, dark mines. There was nothing of the gnome about Eleanor, and she therefore resolved to tell Charlotte Stanhope the whole story about Mr. Slope. "That horrid man, that Mr. Slope," said she. "Did you not see that he followed me out of the dining-room?" "Of course I did, and was sorry enough, but I could not help it. I knew you would be annoyed, but you and Bertie managed it badly between you." "It was not his fault, nor mine either. You know how I disliked the idea of coming in the carriage with that man. I am sure I am very sorry if that has led to it." "I don't know what has led to it," said Eleanor, almost crying again. "But it has not been my fault." "But what has he done, my dear?" "He's an abominable, horrid, hypocritical man, and it would serve him right to tell the bishop all about it." "Believe me, if you want to do him an injury, you had far better tell Mrs. Proudie. But what did he do, Mrs. Bold?" "Ah!" exclaimed Eleanor. "Well, I must confess he's not very nice," said Charlotte Stanhope. "Nice!" said Eleanor. "He is the most fulsome, fawning, abominable man I ever saw. What business had he to come to me? I that never gave him the slightest tittle of encouragement. I that always hated him, though I did take his part when others ran him down." "That's just where it is, my dear. He has heard that, and therefore fancied that of course you were in love with him." This was wormwood to Eleanor. It was, in fact, the very thing which all her friends had been saying for the last month past, and which experience now proved to be true. Eleanor resolved within herself that she would never again take any man's part. The world, with all its villainy and all its ill nature, might wag as it liked. She would not again attempt to set crooked things straight. "But what did he do, my dear?" said Charlotte, who was really rather interested in the subject. He... Well, come, it can't have been anything so very horrid, for the man was not tipsy." "Oh, I am sure he was," said Eleanor. "I am sure he must have been tipsy." "Well, I declare I didn't observe it." "But what was it, my love?" "Why, I believe I can hardly tell you. He talked such horrid stuff that you never heard the like, about religion and heaven and love. Oh, dear, he is such a nasty man." "I can easily imagine the sort of stuff he would talk." "Well, and then?" "Then he took hold of me." "Took hold of you?" "Yes, he somehow got close to me and took hold of me." "By the waist?" "Yes," said Eleanor, shuddering. "And then?" "Then I jumped away from him and gave him a slap on the face and ran away along the path till I saw you." Charlotte Stanhope laughed heartily at the finale to the tragedy. It was delightful to her to think that Mr. Slope had had his ears boxed. She did not quite appreciate the feeling which made her friend so unhappy at the result of the interview. To her thinking, the matter had ended happily enough as regarded the widow, who indeed was entitled to some sort of triumph among her friends, whereas to Mr. Slope would be due all those jibes and jeers which would naturally follow such an affair. His friends would ask him whether his ears tingled whenever he saw a widow, and he would be cautioned that beautiful things were made to be looked at and not to be touched. Such were Charlotte Stanhope's views on such matters, but she did not at the present moment clearly explain them to Mrs. Bold. Her object was to endear herself to her friend, and therefore, having had her laugh, she was ready enough to offer sympathy. Could Bertie do anything? Should Bertie speak to the man and warn him that in future he must behave with more decorum? Bertie, indeed, she declared, would be more angry than anyone else when he heard to what insult Mrs. Bold had been subjected. "But you won't tell him?" "You won't tell him?" said Mrs. Bold, with a look of horror. "Not if you don't like it," said Charlotte, "but considering everything I would strongly advise it. If you had a brother, you know, it would be unnecessary, but it is very right that Mr. Slope should know that you have somebody by you that will and can protect you." "But my father is here." "Yes, but it is so disagreeable for clergymen to have to quarrel with each other. And circumstanced as your father is just at this moment, it would be very inexpedient that there should be anything unpleasant between him and Mr. Slope. Surely you and Bertie are intimate enough for you to permit him to take your part." Charlotte Stanhope was very anxious that her brother should at once, on that very day, settle matters with his future wife. Things had now come to that point between him and his father, and between him and his creditors, that he must either do so or leave Barchester. Either do that or go back to his unwashed associates, dirty lodgings, and poor living at Carrara. Unless he could provide himself with an income, he must go to Carrara or to somewhere else. His father, the prebendary, had not said this in so many words, but had he done so, he could not have signified it more plainly. Such being the state of the case, it was very necessary that no more time should be lost. Charlotte had seen her brother's apathy when he neglected to follow Mrs. Bold out of the room, with anger which she could hardly suppress. It was grievous to think that Mr. Slope should have so distanced him. Charlotte felt that she had played her part with sufficient skill. She had brought them together and induced such a degree of intimacy that her brother was really relieved from all trouble and labour in the matter. And, moreover, it was quite plain that Mrs. Bold was very fond of Bertie. And now it was plain enough also that he had nothing to fear from his rival, Mr. Slope. There was certainly an awkwardness in subjecting Mrs. Bold to a second offer on the same day. It would have been well, perhaps, to have put the matter off for a week, could a week have been spared. But circumstances are frequently too peremptory to be arranged as we would wish to arrange them, and such was the case now. This being so, could not this affair of Mr. Slope's be turned to advantage? Could it not be made the excuse for bringing Bertie and Mrs. Bold into still closer connection, into such close connection that they could not fail to throw themselves into each other's arms? Such was the game which Miss Stanhope now at a moment's notice resolved to play. And very well she played it. In the first place, it was arranged that Mr. Slope should not return in the Stanhopes' carriage to Barchester. It so happened that Mr. Slope was already gone, but of that, of course, they knew nothing. The Signora should be induced to go first, with only the servants and her sister, and Bertie should take Mr. Slope's place in the second journey. Bertie was to be told in confidence of the whole affair, and when the carriage was gone off with its first load, Eleanor was to be left under Bertie's special protection, so as to ensure her from any further aggression from Mr. Slope. While the carriage was getting ready, Bertie was to seek out that gentleman and make him understand that he must provide himself with another conveyance back to Barchester. Their immediate object should be to walk about together in search of Bertie. Bertie, in short, was to be the Pegasus on whose wings they were to ride out of their present dilemma. There was a warmth of friendship and cordial kindliness in all this that was very soothing to the widow. But yet, though she gave way to it, she was hardly reconciled to doing so. It never occurred to her that, now that she had killed one dragon, another was about to spring up in her path. She had no remote idea that she would have to encounter another suitor in her proposed protector, but she hardly liked the thought of putting herself so much into the hands of young Stanhope. She felt that if she wanted protection, she should go to her father. She felt that she should ask him to provide a carriage for her back to Barchester. Mrs. Clantantram, she knew, would give her a seat. She knew that she should not throw herself entirely upon friends whose friendship dated, as it were, but from yesterday. But yet she could not say no to one who was so sisterly in her kindness, so eager in her good nature, so comfortably sympathetic as Charlotte Stanhope. And thus she gave way to all the propositions made to her. They first went into the dining-room, looking for their champion, and from thence to the drawing-room. Here they found Mr. Arabin, still hanging over the Signora's sofa, or rather they found him sitting near her head, as a physician might have sat, had the lady been his patient. There was no other person in the room. The guests were, some in the tent, some few still in the dining-room, some at the bows and arrows, but most of them walking with Miss Thorne through the park, and looking at the games that were going on. All that had passed, and was passing, between Mr. Arabin and the lady, it is unnecessary to give in detail. She was doing with him as she did with all others. It was her mission to make fools of men, and she was pursuing her mission with Mr. Arabin. She had almost got him to own his love for Mrs. Bold, and had subsequently almost induced him to acknowledge a passion for herself. He, poor man, was hardly aware what he was doing or saying, hardly conscious whether he was in heaven or in hell. So little had he known of female attractions of that peculiar class which the signora owned, that he became affected with a kind of temporary delirium when first subjected to its power. He lost his head rather than his heart, and toppled about mentally, reeling in his ideas as a drunken man does on his legs. She had whispered to him words that really meant nothing, but which, coming from such beautiful lips, and accompanied by such lustrous glances, seemed to have a mysterious significance, which he felt though he could not understand. In being thus besirened, Mr. Arabin behaved himself very differently from Mr. Slope. The signora had said truly that the two men were the contrasts of each other, that the one was all for action, the other all for thought. Mr. Slope, when this lady laid upon his senses the overpowering breath of her charms, immediately attempted to obtain some fruition, to achieve some mighty triumph. He began by catching at her hand, and progressed by kissing it. He made vows of love, and asked for vows in return. He promised everlasting devotion, knelt before her, and swore that had she been on Mount Ida, Juno would have had no cause to hate the offspring of Venus. But Mr. Arabin uttered no oaths, kept his hand mostly in his trouser pocket, and had no more thought of kissing Madame Neroni than of kissing the Countess de Courcy. As soon as Mr. Arabin saw Mrs. Bold enter the room, he blushed and rose from his chair. Then he sat down again, and then again got up. The signora saw the blush at once, and smiled at the poor victim. But Eleanor was too much confused to see anything. "Oh, Madeline," said Charlotte, "I want to speak to you particularly. We must arrange about the carriage, you know." And she stooped down to whisper to her sister. Mr. Arabin immediately withdrew to a little distance, and as Charlotte had in fact much to explain before she could make the new carriage arrangement intelligible, he had nothing to do but to talk to Mrs. Bold. "We have had a very pleasant party," said he, using the tone he would have used had he declared that the sun was shining very brightly or the rain falling very fast. "Very," said Eleanor, who never in her life had passed a more unpleasant day. "I hope Mr. Harding has enjoyed himself?" "Oh, yes, very much," said Eleanor, who had not seen her father since she parted from him soon after her arrival. "He returns to Barchester tonight, I suppose?" "Yes, I believe so. That is, I think he is staying at Plumstead." "Oh, staying at Plumstead," said Mr. Arabin. "He came from there this morning. I believe he is going back. He didn't exactly say, however." "I hope Mrs. Grantley is quite well?" "She seemed to be quite well. She is here. That is, unless she has gone away." Oh, yes, to be sure, I was talking to her. Looking very well indeed." Then there was a considerable pause, for Charlotte could not at once make Madeline understand why she was to be sent home in a hurry without her brother. "Are you returning to Plumstead, Mrs. Bold?" Mr. Arabin merely asked this by way of making conversation, but he immediately perceived that he was approaching dangerous ground. "No," said Mrs. Bold very quietly. "I am going home to Barchester." Yes, I had forgotten that you had returned." And then Mr. Arabin, finding it impossible to say anything further, stood silent till Charlotte had completed her plans, and Mrs. Bold stood equally silent, intently occupied, as it appeared, in the arrangement of her rings. And yet these two people were thoroughly in love with each other, and though one was a middle-aged clergyman, and the other a lady at any rate past the wishy-washy bread-and-butter period of life, they were as unable to tell their own minds to each other as any Damon and Phyllis, whose united ages would not make up that to which Mr. Arabin had already attained. Madeline Neroni consented to her sister's proposal, and then the two ladies again went off in quest of Bertie Stanhope. Chapter 42. Ullathorne Sports, Act 3. And now Miss Thorne's guests were beginning to take their departure, and the amusement of those who remained was becoming slack. It was getting dark, and ladies in mourning costumes were thinking that if they were to appear by candlelight, they ought to readjust themselves. Some young gentlemen had been heard to talk so loud that prudent mammas determined to retire judiciously, and the more discreet of the male sex, whose libations had been moderate, felt that there was not much more left for them to do. Morning parties, as a rule, are failures. People never know how to get away from them gracefully. A picnic on an island, or a mountain, or in a wood may perhaps be permitted. There is no master of the mountain bound by courtesy to bid you stay while in his heart he is longing for your departure. But in a private house, or in private grounds, a morning party is a bore. One is called on to eat and drink at unnatural hours. One is obliged to give up the day, which is useful, and then is left without resource for the evening, which is useless. One gets home fagged and désouvre, yet at an hour too early for bed. There is no comfortable resource left. Cards in these genteel days are among the things tabooed, and a rubber of whist is impracticable. All this began now to be felt. Some young people had come with some amount of hope that they might get up a dance in the evening, and were unwilling to leave till all such hope was at an end. Others, fearful of staying longer than was expected, had ordered their carriages early, and were doing their best to go, solicitous for their servants and horses. The Countess and her noble brood were among the first to leave, and as regarded the Honourable George, it was certainly time that he did so. Her ladyship was in great fret and fume. Those horrid roads would, she was sure, be the death of her if unhappily she were caught in them by the dark night. The lamps, she was assured, were good, but no lamp could withstand the jolting of the roads of East Barsetshire. The de Courcy property lay in the western division of the county. Mrs. Proudie could not stay when the Countess was gone. So the bishop was searched for by the Reverends Messrs. Grey and Green, and found in one corner of the tent, enjoying himself thoroughly in a disquisition on the hebdomadal board. He obeyed, however, the behests of his lady without finishing the sentence in which he was promising to Dr. Gwynne that his authority at Oxford should remain unimpaired, and the episcopal horses turned their noses towards the palatial stables. Then the Grantleys went. Before they did so, Mr. Harding managed to whisper a word into his daughter's ear. Of course, he said he would undeceive the Grantleys as to that foolish rumour about Mr. Slope. No, said Eleanor. Pray do not. Pray wait until I see you. You will be home in a day or two, and then I will explain to you everything. I shall be home tomorrow, said he. I am so glad, said Eleanor. You will come and dine with me, and then we shall be so comfortable. Mr. Harding promised. He did not exactly know what there was to be explained, or why Dr. Grantley's mind should not be disabused of the mistake into which he had fallen, but nevertheless he promised. He owed some reparation to his daughter, and he thought that he might best make it by obedience. And thus the people were thinning off by degrees, as Charlotte and Eleanor walked about in quest of Bertie. Their search might have been long had they not happened to hear his voice. He was comfortably ensconced in the ha-ha, with his back to the sloping side, smoking a cigar, and eagerly engaged in conversation with some youngster from the farther side of the county, whom he had never met before, who was also smoking under Bertie's pupillage, and listening with open ears to an account given by his companion of some of the pastimes of eastern clime. "Bertie, I am seeking you everywhere," said Charlotte. "Come up here at once." Bertie looked up out of the ha-ha and saw the two ladies before him. As there was nothing for him but to obey, he got up and threw away his cigar. From the first moment of his acquaintance with her, he had liked Eleanor Bold. Had he been left to his own devices, had she been penniless, and had it then been quite out of the question that he should marry her, he would most probably have fallen violently in love with her. But now he could not help regarding her somewhat as he did the marble workshops at Carrara, as he had done his easel and palette, as he had done the lawyers' chambers in London. In fact, as he had invariably regarded everything by which it had been proposed to him to obtain the means of living. Eleanor Bold appeared before him no longer as a beautiful woman, but as a new profession called matrimony. It was a profession indeed requiring but little labour, and one in which an income was insured to him. But nevertheless he had been, as it were, goaded onto it. His sister had talked to him of Eleanor just as she had talked of busts and portraits. Bertie did not dislike money, but he hated the very thought of earning it. He was now called away from his pleasant cigar to earn it, by offering himself as a husband to Mrs. Bold. The work indeed was made easy enough, for in lieu of his having to seek the widow had apparently come to seek him. He made some sudden absurd excuse to his auditor, and then, throwing away his cigar, climbed up the wall of the ha-ha and joined the ladies on the lawn. "Come and give Mrs. Bold an arm," said Charlotte, "while I set on you a piece of duty which, as a preux chevalier, you must immediately perform. Your personal danger will, I fear, be insignificant, as your antagonist is a clergyman." Bertie immediately gave his arm to Eleanor, walking between her and his sister. He had lived too long abroad to fall into the Englishman's habit of offering each an arm to two ladies at the same time, a habit, by the by, which foreigners regard as an approach to bigamy, a sort of incipient Mormonism. The little history of Mr. Slope's misconduct was then told to Bertie by his sister, Eleanor's ears tingling all the while. And well they might tingle. If it were necessary to speak of the outrage at all, why should it be spoken of to such a person as Mr. Stanhope, and why in her own hearing? She knew she was wrong, and was unhappy and dispirited, and yet she could think of no way to extricate herself, no way to set herself right. Charlotte spared her as much as she possibly could, spoke of the whole thing as though Mr. Slope had taken a glass of wine too much, said that of course there would be nothing more about it, but that steps must be taken to exclude Mr. Slope from the carriage. "Mrs. Bold need be under no alarm about that," said Bertie, "for Mr. Slope has gone this hour past. He told me that business made it necessary that he should start at once for Barchester." "He is not so tipsy, at any rate, but what he knows his fault," said Charlotte. "Well, my dear, that is one difficulty over. Now I'll leave you with your true knight, and get Madeline off as quickly as I can. The carriage is here, I suppose, Bertie?" "It has been here for the last hour." "That's well. Goodbye, my dear. Of course you'll come in to tea. I shall trust to you to bring her, Bertie. even by force if necessary." And so saying, Charlotte ran off across the lawn, leaving her brother alone with the widow. As Miss Stanhope went off, Eleanor bethought herself that, as Mr. Slope had taken his departure, there no longer existed any necessity for separating Mr. Stanhope from his sister Madeline, who so much needed his aid. It had been arranged that he should remain so as to preoccupy Mr. Slope's place in the carriage, and act as a social policeman to effect the exclusion of that disagreeable gentleman. But Mr. Slope had effected his own exclusion, and there was no possible reason now why Bertie should not go with his sister. At least Eleanor saw none, and she said as much. "Oh, let Charlotte have her own way," said he. "She has arranged it, and there will be no end of confusion if we make another change. Charlotte always arranges everything in our house, and rules us like a despot." "But the Signora?" said Eleanor. "Oh, the Signora can do very well without me. Indeed, she will have to do without me," he added, thinking rather of his studies in Carrara than of his Barchester hymeneals. "Why, you are not going to leave us?" asked Eleanor. It has been said that Bertie Stanhope was a man without principle. He certainly was so. He had no power of using active mental exertion to keep himself from doing evil. Evil had no ugliness in his eyes, virtue no beauty. He was void of any of these feelings which actuate men to do good, but he was perhaps equally void of those which actuate men to do evil. He got into debt with utter recklessness, thinking nothing as to whether the tradesman would ever be paid or not. But he did not invent active schemes of deceit for the sake of extracting the goods of others. If a man gave him credit, that was the man's lookout. Bertie Stanhope troubled himself nothing further. In borrowing money he did the same. He gave people references to his governor, told them that the old chap had a good income, and agreed to pay 60% for the accommodation. All this he did without a scruple of conscience, but then he never contrived active villainy. In this affair of his marriage, it had been represented to him as a matter of duty that he ought to put himself in possession of Mrs. Bold's hand and fortune, and at first he had so regarded it. About her he had thought but little. It was the customary thing for men situated as he was to marry for money, and there was no reason why he should not do what others around him did. And so he consented. But now he began to see the matter in another light. He was setting himself down to catch this woman, as a cat sits to catch a mouse. He was to catch her and swallow her up, her and her child, and her houses and land, in order that he might live on her instead of on his father. There was a cold, calculating, cautious cunning about this quite at variance with Bertie's character. The prudence of the measure was quite as antagonistic to his feelings as the iniquity. And then, should he be successful, what would be the reward? Having satisfied his creditors with half of the widow's fortune, he would be allowed to sit down quietly at Barchester, keeping economical house with the remainder. His duty would be to rock the cradle of the late Mr. Bold's child, and his highest excitement a demure party at Plumstead Rectory, should it ultimately turn out that the Archdeacon would be sufficiently reconciled to receive him. There was very little in the programme to allure such a man as Bertie Stanhope. Would not the Carrara workshop, or whatever worldly career fortune might have in store for him, would not almost anything be better than this? The lady herself was undoubtedly all that was desirable, but the most desirable lady becomes nauseous when she has to be taken as a pill. He was pledged to his sister, however, and let him quarrel with whom he would, it behoved him not to quarrel with her. If she were lost to him, all would be lost that he could ever hope to derive henceforward from the paternal roof-tree. His mother was apparently indifferent to his weal or woe, to his wants or his warfare. His father's brow got blacker and blacker from day to day as the old man looked at his hopeless son. And as for Madeline, poor Madeline, whom of all of them he liked the best, she had enough to do to shift for herself. No, come what might, he must cling to his sister and obey her behests, let them be ever so stern, or, at the very least, seem to obey them. Could not some happy deceit bring him through in this matter, so that he might save appearances with his sister, and yet not betray the widow to her ruin? What if he made a confederate of Eleanor? 'Twas in this spirit that Bertie Stanhope set about his wooing. "But you are not going to leave Barchester?" asked Eleanor. "I do not know," he replied. "I hardly know yet what I am going to do. But it is at any rate certain that I must do something." "You mean about your profession?" said she. "Yes, about my profession, if you can call it one." "And is it not one?" said Eleanor. "Were I a man, I know none I should prefer to it, except painting, and I believe the one is as much in your power as the other." "Yes, just about equally so," said Bertie, with a little touch of inward satire directed at himself. He knew in his heart that he would never make a penny by either. "I have often wondered, Mr. Stanhope, why you do not exert yourself more," said Eleanor, who felt a friendly fondness for the man with whom she was walking. "But I know it is very impertinent in me to say so." "Impertinent?" said he. "Not so, but much too kind. It is much too kind in you to take any interest in so idle a scamp." "But you are not a scamp, though you are perhaps idle, and I do take an interest in you, a very great interest," she added, in a voice which almost made him resolve to change his mind. "And when I call you idle, I know you are only so for the present moment. Why can't you settle steadily to work here in Barchester?" "And make busts of the bishop, dean, and chapter? Or perhaps, if I achieve a great success, obtain a commission to put up an elaborate tombstone over a prebendary's widow, a dead lady with a Grecian nose, a bandeau, and an intricate lace veil, lying, of course, on a marble sofa, from among the legs of which Death will be creeping out and poking at his victim with a small toasting fork." Eleanor laughed, but yet she thought that if the surviving prebendary paid the bill, the object of the artist as a professional man would, in a great measure, be obtained. "I don't know about the dean and chapter and the prebendary's widow," said Eleanor. "Of course you must take them as they come. But the fact of your having a great cathedral in which such ornaments are required could not but be in your favour." "No real artist could descend to the ornamentation of a cathedral," said Bertie, who had his ideas of the high, ecstatic ambition of art, as indeed all artists have who are not in receipt of a good income. "Buildings should be fitted to grace the sculpture, not the sculpture to grace the building." "Yes, where the work of art is good enough to merit it. Do you, Mr. Stanhope, do something sufficiently excellent, and we ladies of Barchester will erect it for a fitting receptacle. Come, what shall the subject be?" "I'll put you in your pony chair, Mrs. Bold, as Danica put Adrienne on her lion. Only you must promise to sit for me." "My ponies are too tame, I fear, and my broad-brimmed straw hat will not look so well in marble as the lace veil of the prebendary's wife. If you will not consent to that, Mrs. Bold, I will consent to try no other subject in Barchester." "You are determined, then, to push your fortune in other lands?" "I am determined," said Bertie, slowly and significantly, as he tried to bring up his mind to a great resolve. "I am determined in this matter to be guided wholly by you." "Wholly by me?" said Eleanor, astonished at, and not quite liking, his altered manner. "Wholly by you," said Bertie, dropping his companion's arm and standing before her on the path. In their walk they had come exactly to the spot in which Eleanor had been provoked into slapping Mr. Slope's face. Could it be possible that this place was peculiarly unpropitious to her comfort? Could it be possible that she should here have to encounter yet another amorous swain? "If you will be guided by me, Mr. Stanhope, you will set yourself down to steady and persevering work, and you will be ruled by your father as to the place in which it will be most advisable for you to do so." "Nothing could be more prudent, if only it were practicable. But now, if you will let me, I will tell you how it is that I will be guided by you, and why. Will you let me tell you?" "I really do not know what you can have to tell." "No, you cannot know. It is impossible that you should. But we have been very good friends, Mrs. Bold, have we not?" "Yes, I think we have," said she, observing in his demeanour an earnestness very unusual with him. "You were kind enough to say just now that you took an interest in me, and I was perhaps vain enough to believe you." "There is no vanity in that. I do so as your sister's brother, and as my own friend also." "Well, I don't deserve that you should feel so kindly towards me," said Bertie, "but upon my word I am very grateful for it." And he paused a while, hardly knowing how to introduce the subject that he had in hand. And it was no wonder that he found it difficult. He had to make known to his companion the scheme that had been prepared to rob her of her wealth. He had to tell her that he had intended to marry her without loving her, or else that he loved her without intending to marry her. And he had also to bespeak from her not only his own pardon, but also that of his sister, and induce Mrs. Bold to protest in her future communion with Charlotte that an offer had been duly made to her and duly rejected. Bertie Stanhope was not prone to be very diffident of his own conversational powers, but it did seem to him that he was about to tax them almost too far. He hardly knew where to begin, and he hardly knew where he should end. By this time Eleanor was again walking on slowly by his side, not taking his arm as she had heretofore done, but listening very intently for whatever Bertie might have to say to her. "I wish to be guided by you," said he, "and, indeed, in this matter there is no one else who can set me right." "Oh, that must be nonsense," said she. "Well, listen to me now, Mrs. Bold, and, if you can help it, pray don't be angry with me." "Angry?" said she. "Oh, indeed, you will have cause to be so. You know how very much attached to you my sister Charlotte is." Eleanor acknowledged that she did. "Indeed, she is. I never knew her to love anyone so warmly on so short an acquaintance. You know also how well she loves me." Eleanor now made no answer, but she felt the blood tingle in her cheek as she gathered from what he said the probable result of this double-barrelled love on the part of Miss Stanhope. "I am her only brother, Mrs. Bold, and it is not to be wondered at that she should love me. But you do not yet know, Charlotte. You do not know how entirely the well-being of our family hangs on her. Without her to manage for us, I do not know how we should get on from day to day. You cannot yet have observed all this." Eleanor had indeed observed a good deal of this. She did not, however, now say so, but allowed him to proceed with his story. "You cannot therefore be surprised that Charlotte should be most anxious to do the best for us all." Eleanor said that she was not at all surprised. "And she has had a very difficult game to play, Mrs. Bold. A very difficult game. Poor Madeline's unfortunate marriage and terrible accident, my mother's ill health, my father's absence from England, and last and worst, perhaps, my own roving, idle spirit have almost been too much for her. You cannot wonder if among all her cares one of the foremost is to see me settled in the world." Eleanor on this occasion expressed no acquiescence. She certainly supposed that a formal offer was to be made, and could not but think that so singular an exordium was never before made by a gentleman in a similar position. Mr. Slope had annoyed her by the excess of his ardour. It was quite clear that no such danger was to be feared from Mr. Stanhope. Prudential motives alone actuated him. Not only was he about to make love because his sister told him, but he also took the precaution of explaining all this before he began. 'Twas thus, we may presume, that the matter presented itself to Mrs. Bold. When he had got so far, Bertie began poking the gravel with a little cane which he carried. He still kept moving on, but very slowly, and his companion moved slowly by his side, not inclined to assist him in the task, the performance of which appeared to be difficult for him. "Knowing how fond she is of yourself, Mrs. Bold, cannot you imagine what scheme should have occurred to her?" "I can imagine no better scheme, Mr. Stanhope, than the one I proposed to you just now." "No," said he, somewhat lackadaisically. "I suppose that would be best. But Charlotte thinks another plan might be joined with it. She wants me to marry you." A thousand remembrances flashed across Eleanor's mind, all in a moment. How Charlotte had talked about and praised her brother, how she had continually contrived to throw the two of them together, how she had encouraged all manner of little intimacies, how she had with singular cordiality persisted in treating Eleanor as one of the family. All this had been done to secure her comfortable income for the benefit of one of the family. Such a feeling as this is very bitter when it first impresses itself on a young mind. To the old, such plots and plans, such matured schemes for obtaining the goods of this world without the trouble of earning them, such long-headed attempts to convert tuum into meum, are the ways of life to which they are accustomed. 'Tis thus that many live, and it therefore behoves all those who are well-to-do in the world to be on their guard against those who are not. With them it is the success that disgusts, not the attempt. But Eleanor had not yet learnt to look on her money as a source of danger. She had not begun to regard herself as fair game to be hunted down by hungry gentlemen. She had enjoyed the society of the Stanhopes. She had greatly liked the cordiality of Charlotte, and had been happy in her new friends. Now she saw the cause of all this kindness, and her mind was opened to a new phase of human life. "Miss Stanhope," said she, haughtily, "has been contriving for me a great deal of honour, but she might have saved herself the trouble. I am not sufficiently ambitious." "Pray don't be angry with her, Mrs. Bold," said he, "or with me either." "Certainly not with you, Mr. Stanhope," said she, with considerable sarcasm in her tone. "Certainly not with you." "No, nor with her," said he imploringly. "And why, may I ask you, Mr. Stanhope, have you told me this singular story? For I may presume, I may judge by your manner of telling it, that you and your sister are not exactly of one mind on the subject." "No, we are not." "And if so," said Mrs. Bold, who was now really angry with the unnecessary insult which she thought had been offered to her, "and if so, why has it been worth your while to tell me all this?" "I did once think, Mrs. Bold, that you... The widow now again became entirely impassive, and would not lend the slightest assistance to her companion. "I did once think that you perhaps might have been taught to regard me as more than a friend." "Never," said Mrs. Bold. "Never. If I have ever allowed myself to do anything to encourage such an idea, I have been very much to blame. Very much to blame indeed." "You never have," said Bertie, who really had a good-natured anxiety to make what he said as little unpleasant as possible. "You never have, and I have seen for some time that I had no chance. But my sister's hopes ran higher. I have not mistaken you, Mrs. Bold, though perhaps she has." "Then why have you said all this to me?" "Because I must not anger her." "And will not this anger her? Upon my word, Mr. Stanhope, I do not understand the policy of your family. Oh, how I wish I was at home." And as she expressed the wish, she could restrain herself no longer, but burst out into a flood of tears. Poor Bertie was greatly moved. "You shall have the carriage to yourself going home," said he, "at least you and my father. As for me, I can walk, or for the matter of that it does not much signify what I do." He perfectly understood that part of Eleanor's grief arose from the apparent necessity of her going back to Barchester in the carriage with her second suitor. This somewhat mollified her. "Oh, Mr. Stanhope," said she, "why should you have made me so miserable? What will you have gained in telling me all this?" He had not even yet explained to her the most difficult part of his proposition. He had not told her that she was to be a party to the little deception which he intended to play off upon his sister. This suggestion had still to be made, and as it was absolutely necessary, he proceeded to make it. We need not follow him through the whole of his statement. At last, and not without considerable difficulty, he made Eleanor understand why he had let her into his confidence, seeing that he no longer intended her the honour of a formal offer. At last he made her comprehend the part which she was destined to play in this little family comedy. But when she did understand it, she was only more angry with him than ever. More angry not only with him, but with Charlotte also. Her fair name was to be bandied about between them in different senses, and each sense false. She was to be played off by the sister against the father, and then by the brother against the sister. Her dear friend Charlotte, with all her agreeable sympathy and affection, was striving to sacrifice her for the Stanhope family welfare, and Bertie, who, as he now proclaimed himself, was over head and ears in debt, completed the compliment of owning that he did not care to have his debts paid at so great a sacrifice of himself. Then she was asked to conspire together with this unwilling suitor for the sake of making the family believe that he had, in obedience to their commands, done his best to throw himself thus away. She lifted up her face when he had finished, and looking at him with much dignity, even through her tears, she said, "I regret to say it, Mr. Stanhope, but after what has passed, I believe that all intercourse between your family and myself had better cease." "Well, perhaps it had," said Bertie naively. "Perhaps that will be better, at any rate for a time, and then Charlotte will think you are offended at what I have done." "And now I will go back to the house, if you please," said Eleanor. "I can find my way by myself, Mr. Stanhope, after what has passed," she added. After what has passed, she added. "I would rather go alone." "But I must find the carriage for you, Mrs. Bold, and I must tell my father that you will return with him alone, and I must make some excuse to him for not going with you, and I must bid the servant put you down at your own house, for I suppose you will not now choose to see them again in the close." There was a truth about this, and a perspicuity in making arrangements for lessening her immediate embarrassment, but which had some effect in softening Eleanor's anger. So she suffered herself to walk by his side over the now deserted lawn till they came to the drawing-room window. There was something about Bertie Stanhope which gave him, in the estimation of everyone, a different standing from that which any other man would occupy under similar circumstances. Angry as Eleanor was, and great as was her cause for anger, she was not half as angry with him as she would have been with anyone else. He was apparently so simple, so good-natured, so unaffected and easy to talk to, that she had already half forgiven him when he was at the drawing-room window, before he was at the drawing-room window. When they arrived there, Dr. Stanhope was sitting nearly alone with Mr. and Miss Thorne. One or two other unfortunates were there, who from one cause or another were still delayed in getting away, but they were every moment getting fewer in number. As soon as he had handed Eleanor over to his father, Bertie started off to the front gate in search of the carriage, and there waited, leaning patiently against the front wall, and comfortably smoking a cigar till it came up. When he returned to the room, Dr. Stanhope and Eleanor were alone with their hosts. "At last, Miss Thorne," said he cheerily, "I have come to relieve you. Mrs. Bold and my father are the last roses of the very delightful summer you have given us, and desirable as Mrs. Bold's society always is, now at least you must be glad to see the last flowers plucked from the tree." Miss Thorne declared that she was delighted to have Mrs. Bold and Dr. Stanhope still with her, and Mr. Thorne would have said the same, had he not been checked by a yawn which he could not suppress. "Father, will you give your arm to Mrs. Bold?" said Bertie, and so the last adieu were made, and the prebendary led out Mrs. Bold, followed by his son. "I shall come home soon after you," said he, as the two got into the carriage. "Are you not coming into the carriage?" said the father. No, I have someone to see on the road, and I shall walk. John, mind you drive to Mrs. Bold's house first." Eleanor, looking out of the window, saw him with his hat in his hand, bowing to her with his usual gay smile, as though nothing had happened to mar the tranquillity of the day. It was many a long year before she saw him again. Dr. Stanhope hardly spoke to her on her way home, and she was safely deposited by John at her own hall door before the carriage drove into the close. And thus our heroine played the last act of that day's melodrama. And that is where we shall finish for tonight. Thank you for listening. I'm getting vibes from Bertie that he might not be straight. Just a thought there. Not that just because he doesn't want to marry Eleanor, but just, general, bohemian lifestyle. But at least, he was a decent guy and didn't just try and subject her to another offer of marriage. But yeah, poor Eleanor. We love Eleanor. Hopefully things will go well for her. I'm sure they will. I'm sure things will turn up for the books. But yes, I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. A lot of fun. So much drama. I know, right? And all at the expense of this one poor woman who's already had, like, her previous husband die on her. Like, for God's sake, she needs to catch a break. But yeah. No real artist could descend to the ornamentation of a cathedral. Michelangelo has entered the chat. Yes, I did quite enjoy the sort of high art. Sort of, oh no, I can't possibly do that. That was fun. But yes, thank you all very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed. That is where we shall finish because, as I say, I need to get up at stupid o'clock in the morning. We won't raid over onto anyone, just for the same reason, really. But yeah, in theory, Sam will be back on Saturday with more Three Men on the Bubble, I believe. So stay tuned for hijinks of the utterly ridiculous variety. And yeah, then I'll be back next Wednesday for more of this. But yeah, thank you all very much for being here. Go have a good rest of your day, night, whatever time of day it is. Go be good people that you are. Take care of yourselves. And we shall see you again soon. Thank you very much, and good night.